Vapotherm is not a product you typically would see in an LTAC. You may see it in STACs, so you may see it in your short-term acute hospitals. But LTACs, it's not typically their plan of care, if you will. So this was something new and unique, but we thought we could apply it in an effective way to our patients. The aerosols that we use, the high volume, aerosols, that you typically use now with trach collars, they offer some humidity, obviously, but you don't have the heated effect. So that was a problem that we see. So Vapotherm, with the technology they're utilizing with the trach collars now, was just something, to me, it made a lot of sense to go toward that. And with some of these case studies that have been performed, it was logical, this would be a good approach and something we had not addressed. In addition to that, we were seeking a certification in respiratory failure from the Joint Commission. It's a disease-specific certification. Kindred as a whole, with all its hospitals throughout the nation, had never achieved this particular certification. This was a first for us. And we were able to recently be awarded that certification through the Joint Commission. And we're the first Kindred at Kindred Mansfield to acquire that, and we're one of only 15 hospitals nationwide, any type of hospital, to have that certification. What we did was we incorporated the Vapotherms as part of our decannulation and weaning protocols. We're working on this certification, and most certifications that you have in respiratory failure always have protocols, but they're fairly conventional protocols. So we wanted to do something different, and also something that we felt like would be most effective for our patients. We have all this clinical data and everything's coming from different directions, and we wanted to kind of collaboratively put it together. And so we have great ventilators, we have other devices that we utilize for treatment and secretion and mobility and other things that we're doing here as well. And with our physical therapy team, our dietary team, it's a collaborative effort on all disciplines to make this work effectively when our patients come through the door. This was another device that we could utilize, and there's research there, and it was something we felt that it would be a great addition to our protocols. So we indoctrinated it into our protocols. So once a patient gets to that point to where they're not vent dependent, and we're able to get them off where we would normally be going to a trach collar, we're going straight to Vapotherm. So one thing I think Vapotherm has offered is the option of, with the heated humidity, and I think controlling secretions, which is a big factor. You're not having as much of the plugging and those type of things that we associate with patients who have a trach. So that in itself has allowed us to be more aggressive with our therapy. Otherwise, before you kind of had a process and you tried to do it, and you really wanted to move as fast as you could. But secretions were always usually an issue, and with some patients more so than others. So because we're not having to maybe suction as often, because we're not having to use mucolytics, that has allowed us to fast track some of these processes with the decannulation process. And if we can get them decannulated, what that means for the patient is, first of all, comfort. Second of all, our options to discharge. So instead of going to maybe a skilled nursing facility or an inpatient rehab, maybe now they can go to an outpatient rehab. Maybe they can go home. There are going to be many options they're going to have. Plus, the quicker you can decannulate a patient within within a designated time frame, the less chance you're going to have other infections, other nosocomial problems, other issues that can happen with that patient. So it's the faster you can close that airway and that exposure of that airway, the better chance that patient has of a successful prognosis. Patients come and stay average of 25 days typically. Those type of patients are higher acuity patients, 25, 30 days with us. And we're giving less financial support. I mean, that's just how it's devised. So cost and those factors are very important. When you're looking at paying for a circuit and those things with Vapotherm, what justifies that cost? Well, what's going to justify that cost is the outcome. If you can promote a better outcome, meaning you can get the patient either decannulated or much less requiring of O2, you're able to get them in a better state as far as with their lung status, secretions, those compromising factors. All of that's going to equal to cost savings. Length of stay. If I'm able to get a patient off a ventilator and decannulated within 25 days and get that patient to a rehab facility within that time frame, opposed to 40 or 50 days it may take me, that's a tremendous cost savings. not only in just what we're having to actually get reimbursed, which is going to be greatly compromised, but the ability to open that bed up to someone else. So those factors play a large part in the cost savings and what we're able to do. We're sitting at 75% over the last month of decannulations opposed to 50% of where we were the year before. And I contribute that because our patient population really hasn't changed. We're still in with the same prognosis. Those patients' length of stay is going to be greatly decreased. In some cases, I'd say probably an average of 15 to 20 days at times. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. The formulary for this is, it can be up to $4,000 or $5,000 per day per patient, depending on how long they're having to stay in an LTAC. The longer they're on that required airway as well, the more problems you're going to have with nosocomial infections, the more problems you're going to have with VAPs or other issues that could be occurring with that particular patient. Which means now you're increasing antibiotic therapy. Now you're increasing their length of stay. Their options have been decreased. And of course, just the overall safety for the patient. So if I have 3 patients out of the 20 that we had that fall in this criteria, you're talking thousands of dollars in savings. And I know I can justify more than that because we have the data for that. And it shows that, again, our numbers have increased by 60, 75% on just decannulation. I feel like we're better serving our community. We're doing what's right by our patients. And we're giving them more options when they come here.